Today I've come to a little village called Warburton, which is in Trafford, Manchester, to visit this church, which is St Werburgh's Old Church. And the reason it's called Old Church is because there's actually another St Werburgh still in Warburton. And despite the age of this church, it still sits on consecrated ground. The graveyard is still in active use as well for the village. So just from the background there, you can probably see like this has got some age. This is from the 1700s. And then we've got parts going into the 1600s, which is impressive enough. But you're probably seeing from the overflight during the introduction, one of the main reasons that I've come here is because this church is a historical gem. And that is because of this part here, which is a surviving medieval timber-framed Wattle and Daub part of the wall, which I think is just absolutely fantastic. So you really get a sense of the age of this place. As soon as you enter St Werburgh's, it's just mind-blowing, the kind of the structure inside. So these massive oak beams are the surviving medieval structures. So these are dated back to the 12th and 13th century and are still solid as the day that they were put in. Immediately to the right upon entering the church, we're faced with this massive stone coffin which must weigh an absolute ton. So this was unearthed in the 1800s and is believed to have belonged to one of the monks from the Norbertine Priory that was founded on this site between 1187 and 1190 by Adam de Dutton. This is just further proof that the church's history spans well beyond its current structure. Down towards the end of the church we've got the chancel, and the chancel was rebuilt in the early 18th century and the tower was added in 1711. Just in the sanctuary alone, we've got some great examples of the mishmash of history. So we've got the timber frame roof going back to the 12th and 13th centuries. The hexagonal oak pulpit, which I stood in, goes back to the 1600s, so during the reign of King Charles I and the kind of English Civil War with Oliver Cromwell. The floor and the window kind of go back to the 19th century, so looking at the kind of Victorian restoration of the church. So we've got likely Minton tiles on the floor, and then this incredible stained glass window, which is actually adorned with the kind of three stages of the life of Jesus. So on the left, we've got the birth of Jesus Christ. In the centre, we've got the resurrection, and on the right, we've got the crucifixion, which for those who are paying attention would probably notice they are slightly out of order. However, the resurrection is obviously the centrepiece that they're trying to really push for there. And just on the sides as well, we've got the kind of the paintings on the wall. At first glance, these may appear to just be kind of mould marks on the wall, but it's in fact where the plaster and the whitewash is starting to come away, and you can clearly see what is either some kind of prayer or biblical reference. Further research has proven that this is actually a commandments board painted directly on the wall, and it reads, "Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain." And you can clearly see some of those words still painted on the wall. I'm just in actual awe of this place. It's got such a cool vibe. You can just really feel like you're kind of going back in history. One thing I love is this Georgian built wall is fairly straight. As you kind of progress into that original medieval part of the structure, hopefully it comes across on the camera, but you can really see how tilted that kind of wooden frame is. So it's got a lovely camber going outwards. So as you come into the church via the main door, just to your left as you enter, there's also the remains of another doorway which has since been blocked. And this was actually the entrance to a staircase which led to a gallery for additional seating, which once would have sat directly above the main door, just where those windows are. All we've got now is the remains of the old doorway that no longer serves any kind of purpose. Likely the holes that we can see on the frame here were part of the support for the gallery. So the door over there is where the staircase would have led up to the gallery, and imagine if we take a look at this other one. Got similar holes. So again, massive beam would have gone in there with some other supporting timbers that would have basically held the gallery up just over there for additional parishioners to come in. And this is a good sign of why this church is no longer in use, because you probably gauge from the video so far that this church is not a massive church by any stretch. And as the town of Warburton grew, like most towns over the course of time, especially kind of going into the industrial revolution era, kind of Georgian times and beyond, these smaller churches quickly kind of outgrew the number of people that were here to kind of worship within their community. And that is the very reason why there is a St. Werburgh's new church, as it's now known, in the town itself. So sadly the weather has turned against me, and that brings my visit to St. Werburgh's Old Church in Warburton to a close. So hopefully you found this church as intriguing and fascinating as I did, and I highly recommend you take a visit. The church is open every Sunday from 10 AM till 6 PM. So if you do want to come and visit, then do check the church's Conservation Trust website, where you can find more information about the church. And until next time, take care.